Oklahoma at Alabama this Saturday, 2:30 kickoff. I'm pretty pumped about this because I'm actually coming to Oklahoma. And so it'll be my first time to be in the Sooner State. I know the Sooners are playing at Alabama, but I get to be with my peeps. I get to hang out with my friends. I get to be with my tribe and watch that game. I'm pretty pumped about it. And we're going to talk about that in this next segment after the next break. Obviously, we've got the Tuesday podcast. We've got the Thursday podcast that we're going to be throwing things out there and really breaking this game down for you. But one thing I want to do is I want to keep working in here Oklahoma City Thunder talk, Oklahoma City Thunder coverage. Again, if you want that Alabama stuff, just fast forward a little bit more and you'll be there. But, Oklahoma finishes up the road trip back in Oklahoma City now, coming on Tuesday night. And this last game, 114-100 over Memphis, a game that they really had a 19-point deficit in the first half. And sometimes it's not really the lead that you build that defines you. It's the one that you almost lose and still are able to come back from. That game you almost lose. That's what defines you. And it's not the highlight reel. It's more like a heartbeat of who you are. And I think that heartbeat was pounding loud and clear on Sunday afternoon when Oklahoma City came roaring back against Memphis, because this was a game, this wasn't like an early season win that you just say, okay, we learned a little bit, you move on, like we just talked about with Oklahoma. I think this was a statement. The Thunder trailed by 19 in the first half. For the first time this season, this team looked absolutely human. And give Memphis credit. I mean, the Grizzlies came out swinging. They were shooting over 50% there in the first half. They had the crowd behind them. John Morant looked like he was dialed in. Meanwhile, the Thunder couldn't buy a basket. They were stuck at 39% overall for the game, 20% from deep. And it was that kind of game that a couple of years ago, I want to say could have gone either direction, but I think it would have gone south. But this clearly is not that Thunder team anymore. There's something flipped after halftime. The energy, the poise, the belief, all of it looked different. And by the time we got to those final 4 minutes, when the game was a little bit hanging in the balance, Oklahoma City didn't just climb back in. They took it over, and they did it through their closer. I mean, they did it through the reigning MVP, SGA. But I want to talk about that stretch for just a minute, because that's the kind of moment that turns a good team into a contender. And clearly we know that this is a contender. They are the defending world champs crying out loud, right? But with 4 minutes to go, the Grizzlies, they've cut this Thunder lead back to single digits. And Memphis had momentum. But then Shai did what he does, what MVPs do. He took the air out of that building, back-to-back threes, then a three-point play. So you had 9 points in just him and in a few minutes. And that's the difference between letting the game slip away and really just kind of put it in a vault yourself. SGA finished with 35 points, but I think it was more than how much he scored. I think it was when he scored that really mattered. And that's the kind of closing instinct that championship teams live on. And I think what stood out for me the most wasn't just the fact that he could take over. He's the best player in the league right now, so he can take over. But it's about, I think you look at how the rest of the team just kind of fell in line behind him. You saw the leadership of SGA. You saw that the accountability that's there. The Thunder didn't panic. They didn't force bad shots. They didn't try to win it all in one possession. They just kept grinding. They kept defending, and they kept trusting their system. And that is a huge cultural shift from where this team was just 2 years ago. And let's unpack for just a second what this actually means and what it says about Oklahoma City. Because if you have the mindset just looking at this as just, one of those comeback games, we saw them do it last year, I think you're missing the bigger story. I think there's 3 things that stood out about this win, and I think they point directly toward what's becoming the identity of this team. First, they embrace the idea of finishing. You can see it in their composure. A lot of young teams, even teams that have had success, they can start fast. They have the energy, they have the pace, they have the highlight plays. But finishing takes something else. It takes confidence, chemistry. It takes a calmness. And that's what we saw Sunday afternoon in Memphis. It's not just Shai. It's not just that he knows how to close. It's that everyone around him trusts the process. Chet, Ajay Mitchell, Isaiah Hartenstein, former Clipper, right? They all contributed at crucial times. So there wasn't a panic there. There was patience. And the patience in the fourth quarter, that's the mark of maturity. That's where we're seeing this team transition from a group of young players to a group of seasoned veterans. And by the way, let me just keep moving on to the second point. They're starting to show what real depth looks like. Holmgren and Mitchell each had 21 points. Hartenstein chipped in with 18 points, 3 rebounds. And when you've got multiple guys capable of giving you 20 points on any given night, it changes everything about your confidence, what you believe in, and how the team that you're playing, how they are going to defend, and really their confidence in themselves. I mean, think about this. A year ago, we're still wondering how much this roster could lean on anyone other than SGA. Now the conversation is completely flipped. We're asking who's going to step up alongside of him. Not if, but who, right? And that's a luxury. And that's what separates, again, these contenders from the pretenders. And no one's saying anything or believing anything about Oklahoma City other than that they are not just a contender, they're still the top team in the West. Let me give you the third takeaway here. And I think because this may be the most important. This team is showing resilience under duress. You're down 19. You're on the road. You're playing a team that's desperate to defend their home court, desperate to get something going this season. It's the kind of game that can expose the cracks in your foundation. But instead, Oklahoma City outscored Memphis 63-38 in the second half. That is not luck. That is adjustment. That is coaching. That is focus. That's this young roster growing up in real time like we just talked about. The Thunder dictated the tempo. They tightened the defense. They flat out refused to lose their composures. And that's a rare trait, especially this early into the season. And then you talk about timing. Because this win didn't just look good. It came at the perfect moment. The Thunder had just, this is the road trip that they suffered their first loss of the season when they played Portland a few nights ago. And so it's a long road trip. How are you going to close it out? How are you going to respond down in a 19-point hole on the last game of your road trip? And they answered all of that emphatically. You're at 10-1 on the season now. You're 6-1 on the road. And it quietly makes them one of the best road teams in the league right now. And they closed out the road trip with a comeback win that reminded everyone across the NBA that they can win ugly games as well. And that's the thing. Every championship run includes games like this. The ones where you're not at your best, but you're not hitting shots, and the other team's throwing haymakers and landing them. How you handle those nights, it's what defines really your ceiling, how high you can go. And right now, Oklahoma City, their ceiling is incredibly high. Now, let's be fair. No single win solves everything, and no single win completely defines who you are, nor does a loss. Because I think you still have questions about this program. The Grizzlies, they weren't exactly sharp in the second half. And you can say, some of that credit for that goes to Oklahoma City, and I won't argue that. But Ja Morant goes 3 for 18. They just couldn't sustain the pace that they had in the first half. So yeah, the Thunder took advantage of that. But that's what good teams do. They sense weaknesses and then they exploit it.